What happens when prejudice clouds judgment at a prestigious tech company and a manager's bias leads to the most embarrassing moment of her career. A modern office tower pierces the Seattle skyline, its glass walls reflecting the morning sun. Marshall Thompson walks through the lobby of Quantum Technologies, his sneakers barely making a sound against the polished marble floor. At 28, he carries himself with quiet confidence, his casual Friday outfit, a pressed black polo and dark jeans, fitting him perfectly but standing out among the sea of suits. The security guard greets him with a warm smile while others hurry past, barely noticing his presence. Upstairs on the 42nd floor, Victoria Barnes stands at her corner office window, her tailored dress and pearls a statement of authority. She watches her team filter in for the morning meeting, her lips tightening slightly as Marshall takes his seat at the conference table. Victoria moves to the front of the room, commanding attention with each click of her heels. "Good morning, everyone," she begins, her voice sharp and precise. "Before we discuss the Davidson project, let's review yesterday's progress." Marshall raises his hand with a solution to their coding issue, but Victoria's eyes sweep past him, deliberately calling on others first. The tension in the room grows thick as she continues to ignore his raised hand. When she finally acknowledges him, her tone drips with skepticism. "Yes, Marshall," she says, pausing for effect. "What input could you possibly have for us today?" Her words hang in the air, the dismissive tone impossible to miss. Other team members shift uncomfortably in their seats, exchanging quick glances. The morning sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows seems to pause, as if even nature is waiting to hear what happens next. Marshall's expression remains composed, his voice steady despite the obvious slight. The quiet confidence in his demeanor contrasts sharply with Victoria's barely concealed disdain. The scene unfolds like a carefully choreographed dance, where every gesture and word carries weight, building toward a moment that will reshape the dynamics of this prestigious tech firm forever. Marshall begins presenting his findings on the Davidson project, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he pulls up complex code structures on the main screen. The elegance of his solution is evident in the clean, efficient lines of programming displayed before the team. But before he can explain his innovative approach to the client's security concerns, Victoria cuts in. "I think we should stick to conventional methods," she interrupts, waving her hand dismissively at the screen. "We don't need to experiment with untested approaches." Her words seem rehearsed, as if she'd decided to reject his ideas before hearing them. Marshall pauses, takes a measured breath, and tries to continue. "If you look at the efficiency ratings here," he points to a graph, but Victoria speaks over him again. The pattern repeats. Each time Marshall attempts to explain a critical feature, Victoria finds a way to undermine him. Sarah, from the development team, winces visibly. Tom, a senior programmer, stares at his laptop, his fingers frozen over the keyboard. The tension peaks when they reach the project's security protocol section. Marshall's solution incorporates cutting-edge encryption methods, but Victoria's interruptions become more aggressive. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she announces to the room, standing up and pacing behind the chairs. "This kind of amateur approach could compromise our entire system. I can't believe we're even considering this." A few team members exchange knowing looks. Lisa, the UX designer, drops her pen and quickly picks it up, using the moment to avoid eye contact with anyone. The room feels smaller somehow, the modern glass walls seeming to close in as Victoria continues her critique. "Let's be honest," Victoria says, her voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. "This kind of work is what we'd expect from an intern, not a supposed professional." She emphasizes the word supposed with a slight smirk. "Perhaps you should stick to basic coding tasks until you better understand our standards." Marshall sits perfectly still, his posture straight, hands folded calmly on the table. While Victoria's words are clearly meant to humiliate, his composure never wavers. The contrast between his professional dignity and her increasingly unprofessional behavior becomes impossible to ignore. The gentle hum of the office air conditioning feels deafening in the uncomfortable silence that follows. The team watches this unfold like witnesses to a slow-motion car crash, unable to look away, powerless to stop it. Victoria seems oblivious to the growing discomfort around her, too focused on asserting her authority to notice the mounting tension. What she doesn't realize is that her next move will completely backfire, changing the power dynamic in ways she never expected. A knock on the glass door breaks the tense atmosphere. James Anderson, the global CEO of Quantum Technologies, strides into the room, his presence commanding immediate attention. The meeting room falls silent as he scans the faces, his eyes settling on Marshall with a warm smile. "Marshall, just the person I was looking for," James says, completely ignoring Victoria's attempt to greet him. "How's our quantum encryption project coming along?" Victoria freezes mid-step, her confident demeanor cracking slightly. She glances between Marshall and James, confusion evident on her face. "We're ahead of schedule, sir," Marshall responds, pulling up a different presentation with remarkable speed. "The team at MIT is impressed with our progress." James nods approvingly, while Victoria's eyes widen at this unexpected exchange. Other team members lean forward, suddenly more interested in Marshall's work than ever before. "For those who don't know," James addresses the room, "Marshall here is leading our most ambitious project to date. His quantum encryption method has already caught the attention of 3 major tech giants." He pauses, looking directly at Victoria. "That's why we recruited him from Google last year." The revelation hits the room like a thunderbolt. Victoria's face drains of color as James continues. "Marshall's work at MIT earned him recognition as one of the youngest pioneers in quantum computing. When he chose to join us over Silicon Valley's top firms, it was quite the coup for quantum technologies. If you're still watching this, you're a legend. Drop a like and leave a comment about a time someone underestimated you." Marshall remains humble as James pulls up industry articles on the main screen. Headlines highlighting his achievements flash by. "The encryption method you just criticized, Victoria," James says pointedly, "has already been approved by our board of directors. In fact, Marshall will be presenting it at next month's Global Tech Summit in Tokyo." Victoria clutches her tablet tighter, her earlier confidence evaporating with each word. The same team members who had been squirming uncomfortably during her criticisms now sit straighter, looking at Marshall with newfound respect. The morning sun streaming through the windows seems brighter somehow, illuminating Marshall's quiet dignity in contrast to Victoria's rapidly deflating authority. "I think," James says, his tone carrying a weight that makes Victoria flinch slightly, "we need to have a conversation about communication styles and respect in our workplace." The irony of Victoria's earlier behavior now hangs heavy in the air, as the true scope of her misjudgment becomes crystal clear to everyone in the room. James places a hand on Marshall's shoulder, addressing the entire room. "What Marshall has accomplished in just 1 year with us is remarkable. His innovative approach to quantum encryption isn't just changing our company, it's reshaping the entire industry's approach to cybersecurity." Victoria steps forward, her voice trembling slightly. I had no idea. Marshall, if I had known." But James raises his hand, cutting her off. "That's exactly the problem, isn't it? Why should someone's contributions only be valued after you learn their credentials?" Marshall stands, his calm demeanor unchanged despite the dramatic shift in the room's dynamics. "If I may," he says, his voice carrying no hint of resentment. "I've faced similar assumptions throughout my career. People see me and make quick judgments about my capabilities, my experience, my worth." The room falls silent, every eye fixed on Marshall as he continues. "But true innovation doesn't care what someone looks like, what they wear, or how they fit into our preconceived notions. It comes from diverse perspectives, from different ways of thinking, from challenging the status quo." His words resonate through the room as team members nod in agreement. Even Victoria, still visibly shaken, appears to be listening intently for the first time today. Marshall moves to the front of the room, his presence now commanding the space that Victoria had tried so hard to control. In tech, we talk about thinking outside the box, Marshall continues, gesturing to the code still displayed on the screen. But how can we do that if we put people in boxes before they even have a chance to speak? Every person in this room has valuable insights to offer. Our job as professionals is to listen, to evaluate ideas on their merit, and to create an environment where innovation can flourish. Victoria's eyes remain fixed on the floor, but her expression has shifted from embarrassment to genuine reflection. Marshall turns to her, his voice softening. "Mrs. Barnes, your experience in project management is impressive. I've studied your previous successes. That's why I believe you, more than anyone, can understand the importance of looking beyond surface judgments to see true potential." The tension in Victoria's shoulders releases slightly, her eyes meeting Marshall's for the first time without prejudice. Around the room, team members exchange glances, witnessing not just a lesson in technology, but in humanity. James stands quietly by the door, a subtle smile playing at his lips as he watches Marshall transform a moment of conflict into an opportunity for growth. Victoria takes a step forward, her voice carrying genuine remorse. "Marshall, I want to apologize, not just for today, but for every interaction where I let my biases cloud my judgment. I was wrong, and I'm committed to doing better." Her words hang in the air for a moment before Marshall extends his hand with a warm smile. "Growth comes from acknowledging our mistakes and learning from them," he responds. "Let's focus on building something amazing together." The tension that had gripped the room all morning finally dissolves, replaced by a palpable sense of possibility. In the weeks that follow, the changes in the office are remarkable. Victoria becomes a vocal advocate for inclusive leadership, starting with a complete overhaul of team meeting structures. Ideas are now evaluated purely on merit, with everyone getting equal opportunity to contribute. The walls of presumption that once divided the team begin to crumble, replaced by bridges of understanding and respect. Marshall's leadership style sets a new standard at Quantum Technologies. His approach of combining technical excellence with emotional intelligence transforms the team's dynamic. Young developers from diverse backgrounds who once stayed quiet now confidently share their innovations. The office becomes a place where talent truly speaks louder than appearance. As we reflect on this story, it's clear that true change begins with challenging our own assumptions. In workplaces across the world, brilliant minds come packaged in all forms. Different cultures, different backgrounds, different ways of dressing and expressing themselves. The question isn't whether these differences exist, but how we choose to respond to them. Think about it. How often do we let first impressions blind us to someone's true potential? How many groundbreaking ideas have been lost because someone didn't look the part? In a world where innovation drives progress, can we afford to let prejudice stand in the way of talent? This story isn't just about Marshall and Victoria. It's about every person who's ever been judged before being heard, and every leader who has the power to change that narrative. It's about creating workplaces where merit matters more than appearances, where diversity isn't just a buzzword, but a source of strength. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories that challenge perspectives and inspire positive change. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on building more inclusive workplaces, because every voice matters, including yours. Remember, the next game-changing idea could come from anyone, anywhere. The question is, are we ready to listen without prejudice? Stay tuned for more stories that remind us why judgment should never stand in the way of genius.